finally, the heavens have opened and the rain has come, which means the Cheltenham November Meeting, which is coming up this weekend, is going to be a proper national hunt feast. Welcome to William Hill's Inside Track. What a weekend of racing we've got for you. 3 days at Cheltenham, some exciting action over in Ireland as well. The jump season starts here. It's been a while, hasn't it? My name's Ross Brierley, and proper fields, proper races, and hopefully some proper bets as well on today's show, as I'm joined once again by Mr. Andy Holding, who has been to... How many times have you been to Cheltenham in your life, Andy? And how many times have you been to November Meeting?
Oh, my goodness. I don't think I've missed this meeting since sort of the days of... I think Pegwell Bay was the first one I went to, in and around that area.
That again? Bear in mind that I'm younger than you.
Yeah, sort of like mid to late 80s. Bow Ranger, do you remember horse that Bow Ranger? Very promising, that kind of... We were talking...
Mid to late 80s, mate. I was I don't know, I was just digesting solids for the first time, probably, when you were going.
Forgive and Forget was the first Gold Cup I saw, and the only Gold Cup I've missed... or the only festival day I've missed since Forgive and Forget was Desert Orchids Gold Cup. I was working in a humble betting shop that day and I couldn't get the day off, and that's the only Cheltenham festival day I've missed since Forgive and Forget won the Gold Cup. And I'm pretty sure that Bow Ranger was the first, as it was in the day, the Mackerson Gold Cup that I saw. But if it's anything like the Tipping Tim year in 1992, for those of us that remember that far, it was biblical that day. Always remember that day quite fondly because Twisted Davis horse landed a bit of a gamble, but it was almost unraceable. Not saying it's going to be like that on Saturday, but the forecast for Friday is not looking overly promising.
No, it's a bit bleak, but we've been waiting for this rain for pretty much the entirety of the calendar year. James Millman, what were you doing in 1992?
1992, I was probably watching it on the old screen, but I definitely wasn't there. I think 1995 was the first time I went to that meeting. That actually had a double because it was a lot less high profile back then. I think you won a race on the Friday and a race on the Sunday, but there's only like 4 or 5 runners in each race. And the next time I went was when we sold the bumper winner I rode, which went to the sales on the Friday evening. So I haven't actually been there that much. I'm going on Sunday, so looking forward to watching the Greatwood live. But always a good meeting, and some of the stars really do start to emerge, and very much looking forward to the 3 days ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a stuttering start to the jump season, James, partly because it's been an extension of the summer jumps because of the weather. But suddenly the field size have exploded. Certain yards have exploded into form as well. We're still fumbling around in the dark to a certain extent because so many horses are coming off back of that absences. We haven't had as many times to give them a test. I would imagine more horses would have come into this meeting off Chepstow and Wetherby in the past. There's still a few, of course, but this feels... I'm still tiptoeing a little bit into this meeting this weekend.
And we saw that on West Country weekend, especially at Exeter, where the race fit horses weren't considered the class angles, but they came to the fore. And the jockeys, especially Harry Skelton, exploited that race fitness and took some of those coming back off an absence out of their comfort zone. We certainly saw that with Fitzalask in the Holding Gold Cup. And even Doyen Quest, who hadn't particularly taken that well to chasing, but a forceful ride against Chase debutantes certainly put them on the back foot. And that's probably something I'm going to take into the Paddy Power meeting a little bit, in the fact that you just haven't been scoring on grass because it's been so firm. You can't have the same feel on an all-weather surface that you do on the grass. And ultimately, a few got found out last weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case this time around.
And what about you, Andy? I mean, again, in terms of your modus operandi of speed figures and sectional timings, the more races you've got to time, the more wheat you can sort from the chaff. So there hasn't been a lot of wheat. Would that be fair?
Yeah. A lot of the horses that I've got good times for in the early part of the season probably aren't going to run at this meeting. There's a couple. We'll get onto that in due course. But I think James makes a good point. A lot of these horses have been targeted at this meeting without a run I think, to be fair, their respective connections probably weren't gambling on what we're likely to get. We could get soft to heavy conditions come Friday stroke Saturday, looking at that weather forecast. It does look fairly biblical, and it's already good to soft. They've had plenty of rain in the last few days. So it's going to catch one or two out. Then they're not going to be absolutely singing and dancing and humming. All systems go, every single horse in each race, including John Bond. We'll get on to him in a second. He's going to be like the sort of like the iffy one in the Schlur chase. So yeah, you'd have to treat it with a reasonable amount of caution. But I think by and large, Cheltenham Festival form, if horses have got it, should hold firm.
So just quickly then, before we get into races individually, we've seen yards like Ben Pauling, for example. His horses seem to be well forward. I mean, Sam Thomas's have looked, fresh as a daisy off the back of a break. In contrast, the Skeltons have hit form, but that's because they've got runs into them. The horses have been coming on massively for first run to second. What are the yards who we don't mind an absence, and which are the yards we're expecting to take that step forward now they may have had a run? Who's sort of top of your list?
Well, I think the Sam Thomas angle there is quite pertinent, Ross, because he's clearly targeted at least 4 or 5 horses at reasonably good pots early on in the season. They've all got the job done. They've all been well backed. Celtic Dino and the Welsh champion. Lump Sum went through bad ground the other day at Utoxa. He was clearly ready for the Kalahari King, and he was fitter than the likes of Jacks Jr., and there was one of Ollie Murphy's in that race as well. And
Steel Alloy
the other day, well. Yeah, exactly. To win first time out in a graduation chase against experienced older horse performers, that takes some doing that, and he was lights out as well. So if you're backing a Pauline horse or a Sam Thomas horse, for instance, you haven't got that at your back of the mind thinking, oh God, this is going to come up short, like Vincenzo in the Paddy Pay. You'd like to think that he's going to have that horse similar to he had those other 3 I mentioned. But with 1 or 2 others like Henderson, for instance, it's a long season ahead. His horses have just tended to need it. A lot of Nicholls' horses are a little bit in and out. I don't think it's the be all and end all with a lot of their runners. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at this meeting and attacking those trainers that you can have a certain degree of confidence with.
And quickly, James, who's top of your list in terms of giving you confidence at the moment?
Well, I think the Skelton team, as you mentioned, they were a little bit quiet, but they used early October runs as a run to put them spot on, especially because, again, Trent haven't been using the grass for schooling. So while I think a lot were scratching their heads seeing what they did first time out, they then progressed tremendously for that second run. Some horses will be more aimed for these kind of targets, and the fact that, like Jaguar, he's probably one of the few in the Green or Guerra yard that have to go close kind of first time out, whereas a lot of them, the handicappers, it doesn't really matter because your season's hopefully going to be a long one and you're going to progress. So it's interesting to see how different trainers target different fixtures. And over the water, Henry de Bromhead and Darragh O'Keefe, I think they're the ones that have made the best impacts. Darragh, big shoes to fill of Rachel Blackmore, and he's just slotted in perfectly. No stress, no pressure, winners galore. And Henry de Bromhead's team were a little bit in and out. Perhaps the last couple of seasons, they really have hit the ground running. And that yard are flying along. Certainly of the big guns over in Ireland, that's the team that's probably impressed me most.
All right, well, that's a good, a lovely tee up there, James, because let's go on to the Arkle Challenge Trophy Trial. See some novice chasers who could potentially come back in the spring to challenge for the Arkle itself. If you're going to be winning an Arkle, or even if you're going to be winning this race, you want to be 140 plus, I reckon, over the smaller obstacles. And we've got a few contenders for that in the shape of July Flower, Be Aware and Burdett Road. We've also got a 4-year-old in the shape of Stencil. And then good horses in their own right, Brentford Hope and Breaking Cover. But I think they're probably tilting at windmills a little bit. But a few seasons ago, Andy, Henry de Bromhead won this with Put the Kettle On before taking the big one in March. And July Flower is, I was going to say a similar type, but better. She's a better horse than Put the Kettle On, and she could be even better than we've seen because she's only 6 years old.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Ross. Put the Kettle On wasn't anywhere near as good as July Flower was over hurdles. Fences actually made her, didn't they? Very much like 8 flights of hurdles made Make a Stand. He wasn't a particularly good flat horse. So I think you've got to have that at the back of your mind. We're dealing with July Flower here. We're dealing with a genuine Grade 1 stroke Grade 2 mare. I don't think she's quite the very best over hurdles. I've certainly lost her way a little bit. Whether that was due to the form of the yard or not, I don't know. She was a little bit underwhelming in the mare's hurdle beyond Lossiemouth, albeit she travelled really well until not quite getting the trip. But in her early days, in her formative years over in France, she was really good. I remember actually putting her up on my column to win the Grade 1 at Aintree, thinking that she was a good bet that day, having ran well in France and in several good time figure races. And she completely blew out that day, and it was a bit of a head scratcher because after that she went back to sort of running really well. The key to her is the conditions. She won't mind the soft or heavy ground, having come from a French background. She jumps exceptionally well. Obviously, those Auteuil races, the brush hurdles, that's been a good stomping ground for her. She jumped fantastic on her chase debut at Limerick. She was pinpoint accurate all the way down the back. And most noticeably at the last two fences, when she needed good jumps, she really come up in out of the hands of Daryl O'Keefe, and won with any amount of ease, with ease. So this looks a really good spot for her. I'd be a little bit concerned about the ground for one or two others. Be aware. I think he's probably going to want further. I think ideally he wants 2.5 miles of good ground. I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place here. They were going to run him in the 3 mile one race on the Friday, but they thought, oh, the rain's coming. We don't want to run him over 3 mile one. So they've got only one option of dropping him back to 2. But I don't think he'll be quick enough to beat July Flower over 2 miles. Burdett Road, I'd have my doubts about him on the ground stroke, jumping fences around Cheltenham, albeit he's a very talented horse. But again, I think the ground's a concern for him. So that leaves you with Stencil as the only obvious threat, perhaps. He got a terrible ride, didn't he, in the Boodle stroke Fred Winter last year. He went off in front. He was far too keen. But prior to that, he'd chased home East India Dock in a very good time figure on soft ground at the trials meeting. And he looks every inch a chaser. So I think there could be a bit of money for him in the sort of build up to the race when people realise that, the ground's changing and he could be the dangerous floater. But I'd be surprised if July Flower wasn't good enough to beat this field.
Yeah, everything seems to be coming in her favour, doesn't it, James? Like you said, I mean, Dara O'Keefe has been just absolutely exceptional since taking over as number one from Rachel Blackmore. He seems to have learned a lot from Rachel in the sense that I never see him in the wrong position in a race, and that was always the key to Rachel Blackmore. It's like, how has Rachel got in the best position there? And he seems to be doing a very similar thing. Be aware in Burdett Road. Be aware, in the back of my mind, there's going to be a few of these, but the novice handicap chase at the festival, maybe take on some decent horses, get some experience. But the Skeltons like to target a horse like this at a handicap. Or am I overthinking this?
Well, he's gone to Lotus Overwood. He went to the same Stratford race that Lotus took on last season. He was exceptionally strong in the market. And I always think it's interesting when a novice takes on established handicappers. It was quite a good little race with Stratford. The prize money wasn't much, but they went off at quite a good pace. He's a bit of a runaway. I remember when they did a private gallop at Huntingdon, he just bolted under, I think that Harry Atkins might have rode him work, and he just disappeared. He's quite a hard horse to control, so I'm not that concerned dropping back to 2 mile. My big concern with July Flower is that she's travelled to the UK 3 times and is blown out 3 times. Not so bad in the Mayor's Hurdle last year behind Lossiemouth, but it wasn't at her best. She's had 2 goes at Aintree. Andy mentioned the Grade 1 hurdle where she was pulled up, absolute no-show. And she only finished 9th in the Mayor's Bumper, having won her 2 previous starts and was well fancied. So I'm a little bit concerned that maybe she's a mare that doesn't take coming out of her routine that well. If you want to take a short price, all the positives are she jumps really well. She floated around on the chase debut back in October. I think she's the best horse in the race, getting the £7 allowance. But I don't like the fact she's had 3 runs in the UK, in 3 runs where 2 were dreadful and 1 was slightly below par. So I couldn't be backing out at that sort of price. I'm going to stick with Be Aware, and Stencil is my alternative. He was never going to be suited by the Boodles. I felt when I watched him run behind East India Dock, a big field was not going to play to his strengths. I think that's why they ended up making the running, because they didn't want him stuck in a pack and not learning enough. He's just a bit too inexperienced, and the run was definitely a write-off. He gets the allowances as a 4-year-old. He's huge. As a son of Massar, he's absolutely ginormous. So I think he should adapt to fences, and there's been quite a bit of money around for him early doors. He's shortened in price from a double figure price when the betting first opened. So he is my main danger stencil. July Flower, look, she may well bolt up, but I've just got that doubt in the back of my mind. Why is she yet to perform in 3 UK starts? And you're going to be taking quite a short price to confirm that, even though she probably has by far the best form in the race.
Yeah, I think the money for Stencil as well might well be with the weather forecasts, because he is proven in shocking ground, isn't he? And the thing for July Flower is, the only thing I would say, James, is that those trips you mentioned were all big festival days, weren't they? It's going to be a little bit calmer this weekend, potentially. Still calmer waters.
I'd like to have seen one run where I could really say, yeah, she's run up to what I expected her to do. And it was better at Cheltenham, to be honest, but it was a good Rachel Blackmore ride. And I'm just like, with Mare, sometimes they don't take change very well. And it's just, she's had 3 goes and there's been 3 disappointments, whereas maybe she just likes being close to home. That's my only slight concern for her.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it's like you when you come up north, James, isn't it?
Get nosebleed.
All right, so I think me and Andy are with July Flower, but you're slightly reticent to take such a short price. So you think Stencil might give us something to think about? Stencil,
the danger, and I think be aware, I just like the fact Skelton's have gone to Ludus over it. I just felt that was fascinating that we've got all these novice chasers that have had 2 runners, and they thought, no, we're going to go against handicap chasers first time out. So I think it could be a cracker. I'm looking forward to that. Burdett Road, he's drifted a fair bit in the betting, and Brave, Santos and Davis riding him into a fence, I think, first time out around Cheltenham, and I'm not particularly sure Son of Mouvera is going to be that effective over a fence.
Although, funnily, I mean, to talk about this race too much, but he's only had 3 runners over fences, Mouvera, and 2 of them have won, and one of them was Pagan the other day, who was quite impressive, actually. So who knows that Mouvera, top sprinter that he was.
Maybe we got it all wrong. He shouldn't have been a champion sprinter. He should have been heading over fences.
Absolutely. Different dimensions. All right, we'll have an epic boost available on each and every single day of the November meeting as well. So don't forget to log into the William Hill website or the app and see what we've got on offer for each day of the 3-day November meeting. But let's stick with Saturday in terms of previews and the Paddy Power Gold Cup, a classic Cheltenham 2.5 mile handicap chase. There's one every few weeks, peppered throughout the season all the way through to the festival, and they're almost the quintessential Cheltenham race. I feel like every race course has a quintessential race. Your York Sprint handicaps, your Ascot 7 furlong handicaps or something. But these 2.5 mile races throughout the season at Cheltenham they're almost a division in and of themselves, James. And
yeah.
Jaguar had a cracking year in these last year. He's top weight, top of the betting as well. But it's a big ask of a seasonal absence, especially against Sam Thomas. A couple from the Skeltons as well. One with a bit of progression up his sleeve in Holy Jolie Smoke and Panic Attack, who is the picker Harry Skelton. Il Ridotto, who again would probably be able to run around this C&D with his eyes closed. And a whole handful of Irish raiders as well. So, look, it's going to be a big ask for Jaguar, but he's a classy animal, isn't he? And if they win this, they're going to be thinking, what, Ryanair?
Yeah, so he's the kind of open feature horse of old we had 10, 15 years ago. Now, Long Run did get beat in this race. I was actually looking him up to see where he finished. He only finished 3rd. But he is that second season chaser that could potentially step up into open grades, what we used to get back in the past before the Willie Mullins domination started, I suppose. But he impressed me. I thought everything went wrong at the festival. He was never in a great slot, didn't particularly jump very well, and still actually won pretty cosily. I thought he was much better than the fair result. So he's got a £9 rise, 12 turn to carry. It's a tough task. The Green Guerrieri team, we've just talked about yards that are really firing with their horses first time out. They aren't, but a lot of their horses have had successful seasons last year and are probably a little bit high in the handicap, or they've got longer term targets away. They'd like to work their way up through the handicap with their novices. So I'm not taking it at complete face value. I like the fact he's been solid in the market heading into the run to declarations. I think it's very different when you've got a few horses in the yard that you're going to be targeting at a big prize, and I think they can do that. I think they're very shrewd outfits, and you'd imagine with that course distance profile that he's got, This was always on the agenda. As soon as he crossed the line at Cheltenham last year, where are you going to go next year? This was a race they would have chosen. So I think he's the class horse.
Is it a concern though, Jake? I mean, given that there is such a campaign for these horses, is there a concern that the yards horses are needing the run? The December Gold Cup is in a few weeks. Is there a potential that he runs really well here, but that actually this is the pipe opener, and then he goes and bolts up in December? Like he doesn't have to win here to become a graded horse in the spring, does he?
He doesn't, but I think if they think he's going to be a Gold Cup horse or a proper Ryanair star, he's got to be winning this kind of race, in my opinion. He could still get beat here and then win those handicaps over the course and distance throughout the season, but he's always going to have top weights. And if he hasn't improved as much as you'd hope, then that might well be an issue. I just think he's potentially very good. I like what I saw. Billy the Big Red, who we beat the time before the trials day, again, very impressive. When he wasn't that strong in the market, he kind of won despite that. And I just think he's a fascinating individual. He could be that star for them this time around. And like I say, he's strong in the market. And my question mark is horses like Il Rodotto, loves Cheltenham, just how it was third full season as a handicapper. He's got less progress than him than a few of the others. Now, Harry has chosen to ride Panic Attack. I'm concerned by her Cheltenham record. She's got one win in probably the weakest race she took. She's been beaten a fair way at big prices. And while I expect Panic Attack to be targeted at this race, I'm not quite sure Cheltenham's her track. So if you want one at an each way price, Holy Smoke, who just didn't stay last time out, I'd imagine it'd be ridden pretty chilly and pick up some pieces. I think it's a lovely each way contender.
Yeah, I did look and immediately was like, oh, Keelan Woods is riding. Oh, Harry Skelton's chosen the other one. So that did concern me a little bit. But there's concerns all up and down the card here. There's huge pluses and huge negatives for all of them, I feel, Andy. But yeah, Jaguar, I mean, again, does JP have much of a history of winning decent handicaps with future Gold Cup horses or anything like that? I don't know if that's ever happened in the past sort of 6 months or so. So there's Jaguar could be another JP special. But you were talking about Sam Thomas earlier on, and he's got another potentially, fit, ready to go, Di Walters runner here in Vincenzo.
I think Vincenzo's got to be on anyone's shortlist, just because of the reasons we've already outlined. The fact that the yards target horses so far this season, by and large, they've all come off. He's had a spin round Cheltenham, albeit on the new course when he was running up to Calais de Brierley. He just didn't have the speed of that horse from the back of the second last that day, in my opinion. And he actually improved, I thought, for the trip when he ran at Newbury in that very competitive 2.5 mile race, when he got beat by one of the rides of the season on Sean Bowen on that Bolster Barb, who came from literally out of the clouds. But he was always up with the speed that day. And that's another thing about Vincenzo. And I think we need to make the point that front runners and prominent racers do really well in this race. Il Doto was always handy last year. Stage Star, Midnight Shadow was always up there. I think Kill Cody made all. Happy Diva was always on the speed. And all these have, we're talking about, have got Cheltenham Festival form. I think the race is a lot weaker than what it used to be. Jaguar's clearly the standout horse, but you go back in the day, most of the horses that came into this race and won it, and after they won it, ended up being Grade 1 horses. Your likes of Bradbury Star, your Dublin Flyers, your Cypher Maltas, your Fontmorts, your Imperial Commanders. There isn't that kind of horse that runs in this race nowadays. It tends to go to a kind of like a horse that's not quite that level, with the greatest respect to the likes of Cold Cody, Midnight Shadow and Il Rodotto. So I think the likes of...
Surely, Andy, that's because all those horses aren't trained in this country anymore.
Yeah, I just think this is a lot... I want to get at, it's a lot weaker race than it has been of a bygone era, let's say. So I think your floaters down the bottom have got a better chance of winning it than what they had, 20 years ago, and you had 4 or 5 proper graded horses in it. So definitely Vincenzo. I think Panic Attack has definitely got to go on the shortlist as well, based on the fact that I think she's improved since she's gone to Dan Skelton. And the time when she ran here for Old Connections, not Old Connections, but for David Pipe, she actually thought she ran quite well. She finished 4th, didn't she, on trials day. I can't remember what was behind now, but that was a good run. But she's definitely improved since. She won't mind the ground, and the fact that she hasn't run over fencing since winning at Windsor, I think, is significant. They ran her over hurdles, didn't know the time after. This has very much been the plan, and the Skeltons really like her chances.
One thing I'm going to throw at you: the past 10 years, there's only been 2 horses have won this off on their seasonal reappearances. They were both 7-year-olds, both with Cheltenham form.
One of them, wasn't he?
So quite experienced, but unexposed horses, Anacotti and Stage Star. There's quite a lot of horses in here making their seasonal reappearances, and again, we've already talked about them being a lot of horses being rusty. It seems to me that the market has priced up the ones coming off the back of the absences favourite, second favourite, third favourite, because these are the unexposed ones. But
yeah,
there are some big prices of horses who've had decent runs. First time, I wanted to ask you about the Irish raiders, in particular Conyers Hill.
Yeah.
Because you're the Irish guru, but I thought you ran a blinder in the Grand Annual, and he ran into a proper course specialist at Limerick last time out. He keeps coming from too far back, but he's 7 years old. Paul Nolan's he's had a fairly good time over the past few months. They've quieted down a little bit, but I don't know. He was top of my shortlist, and you're the Irish guru. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned about him based on his run style, Ross. He's going to be buried at the back because he's a very hard puller. He doesn't wear the hood for cosmetic purposes. He has to be switched off. And yes, he was a big eye catcher in the Grand Annual, but that's him. He has to be ridden like that, and trust to luck as far as I could see. So it's going to be a big ask. He's going to be sort of 15, 20 behind going down the far side, and on that ground, it's going to be hellishly difficult for him to make up that kind of leeway. Whether he stays the trip as well is obviously open to question. The other Irish horse coming up easy, I could half see him. But again, he's never been around Cheltenham, and I just don't like tipping horses that have never been either in a festival race or a big race here at Prestbury Park. So, and the Irish have got a really poor record in the race. I think Track Will See was the last horse that won it for the Irish. So, it's very similar.
Although, admittedly, this year's renewal, Andy, is run in memory of Edward O'Grady, who trained Tranquil Sea. So it would be very poignant if the Irish took it
would be very, very poignant, yeah. I wouldn't say I'd be sticking a complete fork in both of those two, but they just don't excite me. So, yeah, my shortlist is definitely Panic Attack and Vincenzo. Il Ridotto, I kind of liked him early on the week, but I've gone off him now. The ground's, I think, going to go completely against him. It was good ground when he won last year, and it's going to be totally different conditions. So I'll split my stakes on those two, Panic Attack and Vincenzo.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for that one. Let's quickly switch to Sunday before we cover any other business then, as we've got the Greatwood Hurdle. Don't forget to keep an eye out for extra places as well throughout the weekend, which you will need on some of these races. And if you've got any fancies, don't forget to drop a comment below. What are you backing at Cheltenham this weekend? And in particular, with those extra places in mind, any big price juicy each way fancies you could run on into those extra places, of which there are sure to be a few in Sunday's feature, which is the Greatwood Handicap Hurdle. At the time of recording, we don't have the declarations, so we are guessing somewhat about who's going to turn up, especially if that weather forecast does scare a few off. It would be, again, quite ironic, Andy, if we spent most of the past couple of months saying we need the rain to come, and then when the rain comes, it ruins one of the biggest races of the autumn/winter. Because the Greatwood, again, I think you can make the same argument as Saturday's feature, that go back 15 years and you were looking at potential champion hurdle challengers winning this. It's not necessarily got that kind of gloss on it anymore. However, it's never a small field, it's never a dull race, and in theory, we've got a cracking lineup of 4, 5, 6-year-olds, some off really impressive wins last time out, some coming off the back of absences, some like Mirabad switching to the ultimate handicap hurdle specialist into the shape of the Skelton. So everywhere you're looking here, there's a fascinating angle, and let's hope it gets the race that it deserves, not only in declarations, but also that they, jump all the hurdles, which would be nice.
Yeah, and looking at Sunday as well, the forecast is suggesting it's going to calm down by then. So they're going to go all the rain on Friday, probably dry out a little bit on Saturday, and then come Sunday, it's not going to be, absolutely like a bog. I think a lot of the jockeys will do, and they tend to do when the ground does get bad, is search for better ground out wide. So that might be worth bearing in mind, particularly if you're on a horse that exploits that ground first and jumps on it first. So maybe prominent racers might benefit. Burdett Road, of course, made all last season. Look, the best form coming into the race without a shadow of a doubt is the Welsh Champion Hurdle. It was a quality race this year. It was run at a breakneck pace. The time was exceptional. The form was worked out. Celtic Dino won it on merit on the day. He beat Alexi, who's gone on to win at Ascot, and beat a good field in sumptuous ease. I think the fact that Alexi has had another run and probably might not be as inconvenienced by the ground as much as Celtic Dino might tilt the balance in his favour, arguably. I'm a big fan of Celtic Dino, but he only modest race last season at Aintree when the ground was heavy. So that would be a little bit of a concern. I'm not necessarily sure whether Sam Thomas will definitely run Celtic Dino as well. He hasn't been jocked up all week, so I think they're kind of like holding fire at the moment, perhaps. Alan King has got a very good record in this race. He won it with Harambe, 2019. He won it with Elgin, 2017. And the three horses that he's run since have been Edwardstone, who finished 5th, Tritonic, who finished 4th, and Harbour Lake, who finished 3rd. And I've gone through it, and he hasn't had a runner since. So anything that Alan King runs has got to be worthy of respect. And I think Castle Carrick is one of the most unexposed horses in the field. Only had the 4 runs over hurdles. Beat Diva Luna, no less, first time up on heavy ground at Sandown. And that was when Diva Luna was in good form before she went over the hill towards the back end of the season. He then finished 3rd in that very good race beyond Jet to Vegas at Kelso, beating some good horses along the way, despite not handling the track. And I thought ran well for a long way beyond Honesty Policy in the 2.5 mile Grade 1 at Aintree. Obviously, that was 2.5 miles on good ground. But the fact that Alan King chucked that horse in a Grade 1 suggests that he thinks he was good enough. He's off 133, and he won first time out last season on heavy ground. So I think the 16-1 or thereabouts for him at the moment, it looks very, very tempting as far as I could see.
Yeah, interesting that Sandown, obviously, isn't it? Diva Luna finished 2nd, who bolted up yesterday. 4th was Rip Wheeler, who bolted up 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Unseating his rider at the first was Noble Park, who won at Hereford the other day. So the form's been given quite a boost in the past 2 days in a roundabout way.
In a roundabout way. I think we need to concentrate on the Diva Luna form, because I know Ben thinks she's he always said to me that he thinks she's a Grade 1 mare. And she ran really well in the Grade 1 at Cheltenham before sort of losing away a little bit at Aintree the next day. But as we saw yesterday at Bangor, she's very good on her day. And there was no excuses at Sandown. He got her fit. And let's face it, Castle Carrick absolutely battered her.
Yeah, plenty of options here potentially, James. I'll be hoping that Gibbs Island can run really well from a ratio perspective. He's a 4-year-old who was bombed out in Grade 1s last year, but dotted up at Chepstow the other day. But I know you don't fancy him at all. You think that he beat a load of trees at Chepstow, which he might well have done. But you know, a 4-year-old with a similarish profile on the flat won this last year. So I think he's got a little bit more to offer. But you're going to tell me different.
Well, it was a great race to target at Chepstow because they were moderate, the 4-year-olds in that contest. Torrent, who's been a credit to Nigel Hawke and his team, got beat 21 lengths by Alexi at Ascot. I just felt getting an £8 rise was harsh. If I'd handicapped it, I would have left him on 132 because the rest are just not worth their marks. But either way,
and that's why you didn't get that job as a handicapper that you
applied for. I think they don't handicap how I would handicap races. But either way, moving on from that topic, I just feel he's going to be giving weight away to horses that got a solid handicap hurdle form. I like the Alan King angle, but I'm going to go for a different one. Helm Wine is my choice because we discussed yesterday, Harambe and Elgin are 2 names which they weren't superstars, but they both won this race. And Helm Wine's probably of a similar type to those. He's never going to be a superstar, but he did not like chasing One Iota. Actually ran behind Vincenzo a couple of times and was an odds-on favourite both times and just didn't like it. Took a while to get the hang of hurdling, but he ran a cracker in second to Swinton. I just feel having the summer off, coming back fresh and well, never going over a fence again, potentially, this could be his race. I just thought he could be a nice type. similar question marks regarding the ground. Celtic Dino and Alexi, both those seem best on a sound surface. Also, Alexi bounced around on firm ground at Taunton, and that really wasn't an issue for him. So if it went very soft, that might be a worry. Mirabad, if we have no hurdles, which could be an angle with a low sun, that would play in his favour if he rolls along on the front end. I'd like to move it to that a couple of years ago. So lots of question marks. I like the Alan King angle, but I'm just going to go for a different one than you two.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not the worst idea to just back both of them, is it? If they both run, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Castle Carrot though, because I mean, I thought he ran well at Kelso as well. I just don't think they kind of quickened away from him. He looked inexperienced on occasion. He was kind of taken out of his comfort zone. But
is he not a bit slow? Is my only worry in the fact that they had the choice at Aintree. They went for 2.5, and he was too keen. But it's just slightly surprising that they took him to Kelso for a very stiff finish, Sandown, stiff track. Whether they think he's a proper out-and-out 2-miler that tends to win the Greatwood. That'll be my only slight caveat to his form of last year. Just interesting race placement. He's always gone to, I know Champ's a stiff finish, but the fact he ran over 2.5 at Aintree just suggests they think he should be a stayer, whether mentally he thinks he doesn't relax well enough, because the form looks good, but he just needs to grow up a bit on what we saw at Aintree last year.
I guess the fact is that he'd had 3 runs in 2 months. He didn't settle at Aintree, did he? He raced. I feel like a strongly run 2 miles around here is going to bring him into it. And I don't know. I thought he ran above himself given his inexperience last season. So I'd be interested to see what. I think the fact that Alan, as you said, Andy, that Alan King has such a good record in here, and he said, "I think this boy's ready for this race," suggests that he has grown up a little bit over the summer. So
yeah, and Tom Cannon obviously would have had the choice, and he's chosen Castle Carrot.
Okay, plenty of other top class action going on over the course of the weekend. We'll see Kopek de Board make his chasing debut, Andy. We see Marine Nationale back on the track as well, and that's not to mention 400 other horses running at Cheltenham as well. So any other business, anything you've got on the shortlist that you are looking forward to specifically, whether betting purposes or also it's good to see him back in the mix purposes?
Yeah, I'm trying to, as best as I can, keep on the side of Dan Skelton. I feel as though this meeting is very important to Dan with regards prize money, because he had the title wrested off his mantelpiece, didn't he, by William Mullins picking his pocket in the last few weeks last season. He's got all his horses fit. He's targeted quite a few of these clearly at this meeting. So I'm not going to go completely, headlong into every single Dan Skelton horse, but I think I'm certainly going to mention a couple. He runs a nice horse in the first race of the meeting, a Pas de Nom, who got beat by a lovely horse of David Pipes down in Taunton the other day, having beaten a nice horse of Nichols the time before. But he was runner up on his debut and his bumper on soft or heavy ground at Chepstow behind none other than Sober Glory. If you watch the video back on that race that day, he was keeping on really nicely that day without getting knocked about. And he's got a mark of 116, which I think could be quite favourable given the conditions tomorrow. I then quite like the chances of Heads Up in the 3:30, the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, Albert Bartlett Trial, whichever way you want to look at it. He was second in the Champion Bumper. How good that race works out, only time will tell, but it didn't look too bad as far as I could see. He was the only one to offer any resistance to Bambino Fever, and he went all the way around the inside on the bad ground as well. He was really good at Listowel. His jumping was excellent. And John McConnell, when he comes over here with his horses, tends to do pretty well. And a few on Saturday. Again, Dan Skelton runs Supremely West. Now, based on the time figures that we've got from the showcase meeting, the best race was Marchantu's hurdle victory. And I thought Supremely West was ridden very much as though another day was the target. The softer the ground, the better for him. He bolted up on soft or heavy ground at Haydock last season for Old Connections. And I think the slower ground helps his jumping as well, because it hasn't always been the best in the past, but he jumped really well at the showcase meeting. So obviously the Skeltons have worked on that. And I'm a big fan of Friendship, who should have won the silver trophy, would have, I think, won the silver trophy had he not fallen. The race has worked out really well. and he duly backed up that by bolting up here at the showcase meeting. I think there's more to come from him, and he also won't mind the ground. So there's just a few other names to conjure with for the weekend.
Thank you very much. And James, this isn't your first rodeo. What do you like at Cheltenham this weekend?
Well, hopefully it's not my last either, but last rodeo is the one that I'm going to put up. He ran behind Friendship in that race at the showcase meeting, and he was ridden quite quietly. He got but wiped out by the fall of East India Express at halfway. Now, there were 20 runners. He made a nice bit of progress, finishing ninth up the home straight. Now, I was lucky enough to be there. Looking at him in the paddock, it looked like he was probably in need of the run. I felt 3 weeks later he's going to come on plenty for that, and he's a big each way price. I think he's one of the outsiders of the field, but I just very much caught the eye. And again, 118, they could drop him into 0 to 125, 0 to 120, go to one of the smaller meetings and win a little contest and get it back in the winners and coach. That's what's interesting. They're going big again. This intermediate handicap hurdle, 0 to 140. Friendship was very impressive, but he already had a run under his belt. I know he came down, but he was proper race fit for the Philip Hodge Johnson White team, and he got given a hard ride to win by a fair distance, whereas last rodeo, once he got wiped out, he was not given a hard ride because he wasn't going to get involved. So the fact he finished so close, I thought was very eye-catching. And having that run under his belt, we saw Deep Cave win really impressively yesterday at Bangor for Christian Williams, and that wasn't really expected. So I think some of his class horses are actually probably further forward than Christian thought, and I just think this horse might take a big step up from his seasonal reappearance.
Like I said, I really fancy Royal Infantry in this as well. I mean, again, I fancied him at Chepstow, but I didn't know that the skeleton runners of this nature, especially the hurdlers, were needing that first run so much. So the fact that he plugged on gamely into third, I think, is a huge positive. That second at Perth, that form has worked out incredibly well. He's got soft ground form. He was handicapped last year off a mixture of sort of graded and novice runs. I don't think that's quite got to the bottom of him, and I think he will relish 2 mile 5 on a stiffer track around here. The way that he found for pressure at Chepstow last time, I think he's a really nice horse. And again, skeletons in these kind of hurdle races, I think he's potentially a graded quality if he takes a step forward off this mark. So look, we're gonna have to have the combination forecast there. So there's plenty of other angles. So. Yeah, it'd be a nice payout as well if Last Rodeo sneaks into the frame. So, lots to like then about Cheltenham this weekend. And, the jump season's finally here, Andy. It's finally here properly. It's properly here.
Yeah, I always think this is the proper, true start of it. For me, the Paddy Power Chase has always been the one that lights the blue touch paper. I know, you got the Charlie Halls and 1 or 2 other races, the Downroll meeting the week before, the Chepstow meeting, but this is always when it really does get exciting. And the crowds come in their droves. I think that's the fact that you get nearly 40,000 here at this meeting, you only get like a few thousand at Weatherby, etc., etc. This is the one that really matters. You win here, it means just as much as winning at the festival, this one. So really looking forward to it. I'm going to be there. It's going to be proper national weather as well to go along with it.
Yeah, get your brollies out, you get your wax jackets out. Yeah. Okay, thanks for watching. Thanks for Andy and James for joining us for another edition of William Hill's Inside Track. Catch up on all the offers on the William Hill website and the app, of course. And please gamble responsibly ahead of a big weekend of jumps action. Like, subscribe, comment below. What are you backing? And have a good weekend at Cheltenham.